Hi, Andy. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you, Fabian. Thanks for having me again.
No, thank you so much for joining me and for taking a few minutes. Before we talk about your exciting career in technology, automotive mobility, let's learn a little bit more about you as an individual first. That's okay. What did the past 2 decades of your career look like in a nutshell?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Fabian, for the question. I've been in the automotive industry, energy space, and also the industrial automation for almost 25 years. So majority of my career working directly with the automotive OEM tier one, and also the sector leadership as well. So primary of my focus is actually into technology evaluation, new technology development, program management, and also the executive management. So I was a senior executive leadership for many for star company, and also later down the road, I actually make some career switch going back to the consulting role. And as of now, I'm actually the chief operation officer and also the section advisor for a company, which is my own company as well. as an international consulting company, working directly with the institutional investor and also consulting firms, big corporation on their new technology evaluation investment direction, and also working with a small start company, particularly into the generative AI and also the solution provider. Uh, Primarily pivoting into how generative AI can be applied into multiple different industry vertical and also sector. For example, like in automotive area, industrial application, energy section, e-mobility, and also cross different vertical, how that can become a even bigger ecosystem. So that's actually dominate most of my job at this moment, but definitely I love to share my experience and see and also what I've seen from the OEM, from the tier one, from the ecosystem, consumer, and also what the future looks like. I'm also looking into the stock market today. Yeah, interesting.
No, that's fascinating. Thank you, first of all, so much for the overview. Just to kick things off, what are some of the questions that you mentioned the institutional investors and consulting companies you work with are wrestling with at the moment and that they seek help with from yourselves and others?
Sure. Without mentioning the particular institutional investor and also the consulting firm, venture capital firm, I'm working on specific area. I will really say as high level generally, people are really looking into very specific generative AI infrastructure. Okay, so now the key word is we are actually looking into the early stage of the AI adoption. So how the investor is looking into and also be able to pivot into from the basic construction, semiconductor, data center, energy usage. We haven't been able to talk about how the big company spending and also how that portfolio is going to impact for the next 2 and also 5 years. Is not the big topic at this moment. We are still talking about the early stage of infrastructure. So it's just like the fifth generation, the cellular network. When people are seeing the development momentum, it all start from the infrastructure. So that's where the major focus of the topic. Yeah.
And then you already mentioned the shift towards more Gen AI types of solutions across sectors and across different areas of the value chain. Where do you currently, if you would have to sort of categorize some of these use cases and conversations you see and are having as it relates to Gen AI use cases, where do you see the focus today in terms of use cases with Gen AI? And where do you see this sort of pivoting over the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 years and maybe beyond?
Wow, 3 to 5 years may be a long time from the from the AI AI adoption perspective, but Gen AI definitely, I would say right now, as of today, and also for the next, I would say next year, we will be more focused into the interface. How machine is going to be interacting with a human in much more humanetic way in order for human to communicate with a machine directly. So that's actually the major focus I have been seeing in the markets throughout different vertical. Now, let's say for majority of the application case, like a customer service, they are used for the bank, they are using the chatbot, and also for the automotive company on the dealership side, they are actually using the chatbot to assist buying patent and also the buying experience much easier to just walk into a dealership and find the car you are looking for, because all this information are pretty much available. The chatbot can easily get all this information from the database, from the user pattern, also from many different spectrum to pivot the buyer into a specific model or construction or make some comparison. These are very good use case. In the next generation, the AI definitely will be able to using all this data, pivoting and providing much more valuable data, much more valuable information and those data feeding back to the OEM what the customer is looking for. For example, if I walk into a dealership, I saw a car. The first thing comes to me, of course, how it looks like, what kind of color, what color the car is, and also what type of car can that accommodate my budget? Can that accommodate with what I'm looking for? Does the infotainment system has the features I need? If I am wealthy, definitely I will be looking into a luxury car. If I am just kind of on a budget, I will be looking into the car that fits my need. Very similar buying patterns in the next generation of the AI adoption. Generative AI will be able to provide all this information to the OEM to provide much better insight across a product like a product plane and also product definition team, how the future car should be defined. I'm not surprised generative AI might provide the information that maybe the next generation of the car design needs to be in certain way, or maybe the next generation of the car needs to be let's say driverless, right? Maybe that might be the conclusion coming from the generative AI based on the human let's say data collection and also what the buyers are looking for. I have seen a very interesting uh, patents throughout the timeline for the automotive area. People are buying a car. However, right now, in majority of the metro, people are looking into better experience without ownership. That has been changed for the last 3 to 5 years. In Japan, Greater China, South Korea, in Taipei, majority even in San Francisco Bay Area, majority of the next generation user, they just want to be able to get to from point A to point B easily without the let's say the hassle finding a parking space, worry about um, worry about the car being heat, and also needs to be very very careful on how much what kind of car they are buying, because the maintenance insurance cost is going to be very expensive. Or maybe if you buy an electric vehicle here in the United States, certain HOA or maybe apartment building, they do not allow the charging station, so you cannot even buy an electric vehicle. All these will pivot will pivot the direction of buyer and also user experience into how the user can enjoy the interaction with the vehicle. That is very important because that builds the trust. Generative AI can actually using all this data and also providing the patent throughout I would say for the last 3 to 5 years data user experience. And then for the next decade, I'm not even the next decade. I've seen a lot of the let's say driverless car on the street. Not many people are using that at this moment, but I do see quite a lot of positive hassle-free experience, and that is actually growing really fast. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you so much. It's a fascinating overview. Just building on the point of the, I guess, human-machine interface and the relationship between potentially the individual that's using the vehicle, whether or not they own it, maybe their smartphone, which sort of is almost a hub, I guess, these days of their lives, and their vehicle and maybe smart home system. Who do you think will be actually building the human-machine interface in the future as it relates to the Gen AI solutions? Do you think that's something that the manufacturers will build up in terms of or as an internal capability? Or do you think this is where some of the suppliers, large technology companies will come in and almost provide plug-and-play solutions, and the manufacturers potentially lose even more of their value creation and become essentially just the integrator of these external human machine interfaces into their vehicles and other customer touch points?
That's actually a great question. But Ian, from the if we look into a value chain, the OEM always have own most of the value. The OEM, the automotive OEM, own most of the value. However, the user will decide if they need those value. You can build almost put the gold plating steering wheel, or maybe let's say holography in the car, but it really depends what content the user is buying. So if we look into the value chain creation, I would say that's going back to from the customer end. Customer demand is very dynamic. Automotive company, when we are developing a new technology, infotainment system, and also even the power, I would say even powertrain. Infotainment system is easier because right now we are actually using a software-defined vehicle to control most of the car architecture using the software from the software perspective. So couple processor can handle most of the tasks. Powertrain is even longer. So let's look into, let's say, if we are looking from the manufacturer perspective, how that value can be added into the customer. Because the customer demand is so dynamic, but stability, safety is still the fundamental. So powertrain development is okay. You won't get that much dramatic shifts from the consumer demand. However, the battery range anxiety still remains because we don't have enough charging station here in the United States. We have about 27 electric vehicles share one public charging station. That is probably considered the highest number here in I would say among the developed world. For example, in Europe, we are talking about maybe about 13 cars share one charge point. In Netherlands, or I can't remember, in Finland or in Netherlands, we are talking about 3 cars sharing one charge point. So that's actually very fantastic. So basic demand from there, people need the electric vehicle. The demand is there. People want the electric vehicle to, let's say, to go anywhere without considering the charging hassle, range anxiety. That is still a very valid case in the Europe. But here in the US is very different because we do not have enough infrastructure. That's why people doesn't want to own the vehicle. Then that's going back to the manufacturing design process. Software-defined vehicle is much easier. You can use in software to just reconfigure your user experience. within 1 year, within maybe within 2 year development, compared to the powertrain development, typically we are talking about at least 3 years to 5 years. So that dynamic change based on customer demand can be more adjust to what the customer is looking for. So OEM does have quite a lot of the opportunity to increase that value. That's where the value creation come from. For the powertrain, not that much because you need to meet the fundamental demand. Most of the OEM today, they are actually focused into the cost cutting. So the value creation is actually on the profit, not what we provide to the customer. General Motors, Ford, Stellantis, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Toyota, Honda, every major OEM I've been working with, they are seeing the same thing. The price competition will come down, but the user demand is actually still increasing based on the feature list. So the feature, what kind of feature can add value? That is actually very obvious to the OEM. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. Superb overview. Linking this back to some of the topics we discussed previously, you mentioned that you've been to a number of conferences recently. Let's maybe start by what conferences you've been to and what were your sort of top 5 to 10 takeaways from these conferences in terms of recent trends and developments.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually just came back from the Taiwan show, which I was invited by the Taiwan Trade Association. They invite me to just being an observer and also oversee the technology development, particularly into the AI area in Taiwan. I've seen couple very interesting development there. AI, we call it AIoT. AIoT is actually using the AI to handle the data coming from the IoT connected device. It includes a vehicle, includes the meter, includes your watch, includes your let's say air conditioning system. It's a very general term being applied into this spectrum, but it is a very interesting way to see. Now we have a tool. We have a much better tool set to help us to analyze how all these connected vehicle can be better fine-tuned to achieve their optimization from the proficiency, from the productivity perspective. For example, in the manufacturing environments, a machine equipped with IoT and using the AIs to work on the data analysis and also fine tune based on all this data can be much more efficient and also easily maintained. They actually have a like we call a pre-maintenance schedule. If we are not just talking about maintenance, we are talking about pre-maintenance based on very interesting spectrum. For example, your yield rate drop maybe 0.5%, and also that the quality of the product, for example, like the chipset, the wafer, the wafer has certain patent. Then in this area, we don't need to wait for months or maybe wait for a day to trigger the alerts. This machine requires maintenance because for AI, we can just using 1 or 2 wafer and identify the area the area has a low manufacturer yield rates, and also what kind of machine, and also which machine, and also what kind of manufacturing process. So you can imagine the productivity can spike through dramatically. So most of the industry automation, they do see generative AI and also machine learning can be a much easier tool set to help them understand and also prepare for what needs to be done in order to maintain the high yield rate and also productivity. with that being said, I haven't seen AI being promoted as, let's say, becoming the, let's say, reduce the labor kind of approach in Asia. AI has been considered to assisting the manufacturing operation decision on each one of the machine, and those machines requires human to work on hand to work to work on, let's say, manual maintenance, or let's say be able to using a much more experienced technician to understand what's the root cause, and also what will be the rest of the let's say troubleshooting process going forward. Maybe the machine itself has some kind of design flaw. So all these, I really see a lot of good example AI being used to assisting human making the right decision. So productivity still rise, but human labor still been there to become a very good core relationship between robotic, generative AI, and also the human. Yeah.
Building on that point, you describe lots of the use cases, how Gen AI can unlock some of the value in terms of better decision making. And you've also done loads of work across the United States, across Europe, across Asia. And it's sort of, I guess a question I've been wondering over the past couple of months is, where's the sort of main innovation coming from? It seems like the sort of large model providers, the most established ones, most seem to be coming from the US, but then lots of the innovation in terms of sort of products, also with some of the, I guess, new EV entrants, they seem to be coming from Asia in terms of from companies in China, in Japan, and so on. Just from your experience, how is the, I guess, innovation in this space sort of spread across the globe in terms of current hotspots?
That is actually a very valid question. How investor, if I'm working with institutional investor, they will ask the same question, and with the content, how the investment strategy should be deployed early enough.
Yeah.
Now, the question is actually is very valid. Innovation comes from everywhere, but the adoption is much easier in Asia. Now, because adoption is much easier in Asia, so that would be the test bed. So when we are testing the technology in I would say on the ground, here in the United States, you need a lot of process. You need approval. You also need a trial run. You need so many different things. But in Asia, and those everything can be expedited, particularly like in Greater China, in South Korea. They are actually much more technology, let's say appetite, much bigger technology appetite. They want to see something new in order for them to improve their many different characters. For there are a couple reasons, because in Asia the infrastructure development and the cost, and also the approval process is much easier. And also number two, in Asia we do have a lot of different combination, different color. The most important thing is culture, because the culture has a big difference. So for example, like a Taiwanese, we certainly would love to see what we have in Japan, what we have in China, what we have in Malaysia, in India, because that technology, that culture acceptance, and also the difference, that really promotes a lot of technology, let's say tryout. If we already have a very good we call it AIoT, smart machines, smart factories, can that be translated easily going into Malaysia? going into Vietnam, because in Asia, most of them, they are manufacturer-driven type of economy. We do more. They do most of the we call ODM, and also design house job for the Western country. So they do have a much better, let's say, much better database. How the new innovation can be applied. So that's actually one of the culture gap, and also cultural difference. I will phrase out this way: cultural difference to help technology easy being adopted in Asia. In the Western world, people are most driven by the end user. We are actually the consumer. We are actually kind of consumer economy. When it comes to the big spending from the, for example, like a Microsoft today, and also like a Meta, like a Google, they are spending a lot of the capital expenditure into the generative AI infrastructure for data center building to establish the global footprints for their generative AI application adoption. That will take a longer time, but that is where the money comes from. So it all comes from the big company sees the future of this technology, and they want to spend in, but the test bed is always coming from Asia. So that's actually previously how electric vehicle here in the US, we have Tesla, we also have Mercedes-Benz, we have Ford, we have a GM working on many different content, but in Greater China, they do have a quite large capability to bring that to the speed, and also bring the low cost, and also which much I would say that much easier content to design and manufacture with. Yeah, so their proficiency and also productivity is unbelievably high compared to the rest of the country. So this is just one of the example. Yeah.
Extrapolating this argument, what we see, as far as I'm aware, is that for just taking the Chinese market, because it seems to be sort of in terms of size, fastest growing, that some of the local or domestic players are more successful in the market at the moment in terms of growth. And there also seems to be, with some of these technologies, a clear first mover advantage. You mentioned that they are able to gain experiences, iterate, and develop their products much quicker. So presumably, does it also mean that companies like BYD, like NIO, have a competitive advantage in the space, just given the nature that they're able to test and iterate quicker in some of their domestic markets with some of these new technologies?
Yes. However, automotive business is different from the other industry.
Okay.
Let me just put on this way. Automotive business is kind of a legacy business because it's a transportation hub between one point to the others. How can you attract the user, the buyer, to spending the money to own the vehicle? That is the fundamental thought and the fundamental business model. BYD, NIO, they all have a lot of very interesting, let's say, technology. And of course, the whole supply chain is in Greater China, so we can easily understand that their development cycle is much shorter, and their available supply is actually much more diversified. However, technology maturity is different. The maturity level, what we call the maturity, is how the technology can be more stable and also much proven, and also much easier to reach to the mass scale without a lot of the regulation or safety concern. Automotive company, typically we have to consider all these characters. That's why maturity level in, I would say, in Greater China, I would say that they are still in the early stage. They are not to the level that's actually what we say, how we typically describe as is a long-term long-term stability. Of course, when you ramp up your production, when you put everything together and you want to make it to the markets in 9 months, instead for Mercedes-Benz, typically when we are talking about the new technology development is about 3 years, 5 years. We developed a technology in 2023 and the mass production schedule is 2027. So that's how typically we would need to understand what that will impact, how would that become a feature the customer is really looking into. So in Western world, and we call the developed world, we have so many different technology. We really look into from the innovation perspective. In China, because they have a huge base of supplier with existing technology, but when they look into the content that's actually new, that's actually really requires something that they haven't been able to attain from their existing supplier, they still look beyond. For example, I used to work on the augmented reality content. Those information and those technology has been in Greater China for, I would say, maybe for 5 years, 10 years, but not until the Western introduced this technology to Japan, and Japanese company, because they are so dedicated, they actually put this type of technology into, I would say, into mass production scale. So from the technology and the development perspective, and also the countries that really has a capability. Western and Japan is a great combination to bring technology into the marketplace. But Greater China is actually the best place for the technology to test and bring up the manufacturing capability to the next level. That's the reason why when we are talking about the economy of Greater China, and also how the global automotive OEM sees this market, yes, it's very competitive. But do we, as the automotive manufacturer, for example, like a big three, like in Europe, how do we want to see ourselves into the long-term gain? We really need to find a much better value chain to our consumer. We cannot just keep using the same business model and consider that there'll be something to carry over. That because the value chain has already been taken away by the lower cost manufacturing capability.
Just a quick follow-up question on that last point. When you say, okay, the business model needs to change, are you specifically referring to things like mobility services and other types of value-add services, or in what specific ways do you think the existing incumbents like Volkswagen, Toyota, Ford, etc., need to change their business model?
Across different vertical, what automotive company needs to do to provide much more value across different vertical? Yes.
Okay.
That's very, very important, because we cannot just lock ourselves in as a transportation provider and we keep manufacturing. We also keep working with the government for certain things because that legislation process is going to take take a longer fight with a policymaker. It's already proven the country has its own need. The country has its own, let's say, its economy needs to be taken care of. So as a global company, Toyota, Stellantis, and also maybe like Volkswagen, and also like a BMW. Think about what's the best thing we can provide to the customer is actually is actually very, very important to change the dynamic. I'm pretty sure that the big company, they can really see themselves create multiple business entry points throughout different vertical. As an automotive company, it's easier to be defined as transportation as a service is actually one of the model. Mobility as a service is one of the model. How about can we just become a more diversified the ecosystem diversified ecosystem provider includes maybe maybe delivery as a service, or maybe let's say care healthcare as a service. All these can be really, because we are just talking about from point to point, but don't just see from point to point require vehicle. Point to point, as a human, we need so many different services in between. That's what the automotive company needs to consider, because they have a much better cash position. They have much better technology integration experience than the other industry. Definitely, yes.
No, that's fascinating and leads me very nicely to my final question. And circling back to the initial observations you've made around AI, maybe especially Gen AI, you mentioned that you're talking to the Chief Data and AI Officer, assuming that role exists, at one of the large incumbent automotive manufacturers. What would be your top 3 recommendations to make, essentially unlock the most possible value out of Gen AI in their respective organizations?
Fabian, that's actually a very great question, because institutional investor will ask the same question to the automotive company. My suggestion, definitely, number one things, position the company well. You really need to position into a digital into a digitalization transformation, and also that's as a database. Automotive company has the most user, and also the user data, and also the design data, the ecosystem data. They have the most. Yes, definitely. Now, adopt the generative AI strategy. We call it AI strategy and also data strategy from top down. That principle needs to be embedded as soon as possible. It won't be just a chief data officer job. I would really say that it's actually coming from board level all the way down to the manager level. It needs to understand what generative AI and the next generation, what we are looking into. You cannot just assume you are prepared. You have to think about what you are not prepared first. Look into many different spectrum the big companies spending. Learn from that experience. It's so valuable. And also number 3 is really understand the technology can be, and I would say that a very good co-pilot, or maybe I don't want to use this term, but it's a very good digital yourself. You have a digital copy of yourself, then you can imagine through that how you want this economy can be much better, the whole economy, and also the company be pivoting into a data-driven type of decision-making process. Okay, most of the decision process here in the particularly for the automotive company, of course, executive management, they have their decision-making process is actually pretty much like every company is pretty much similar. However, the decision process was governed by the board and also the institutional investor. So institutional investor and also the board members, they already see the trend, but automotive company, they really need to make sure they position themselves into the, I would say, to provide the appropriate value to provide a much better, I say, much better technology development map, and also that what kind of user case we will be more commercialization into a larger scale as a maturity level. There are one keyword is actually maturity. So for the data officer, definitely you have all the data you need. So you can easily define that's what the maturity should look like from the user perspective. I'm pretty sure that's actually a very valid question for the automotive company and also for the data officer, and not only for the automotive company but also for the other industry as well. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Andy. That's been a fascinating, super insightful conversation. I really appreciate that you took the time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today.
Absolutely, Fabian. Yeah, hope the information today I provide today can be helpful for the decision-making process and also for your viewer. And yeah, definitely it's a very good conversation with you. I would say that this field already have so many different synergy and also so many experience excitement. We just need to see how that can be adapted, how that can be an easier user case. It's actually getting easier and easier. Yes.
Oh, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Andy. Take care.
All right. Look forward to you again. Thank you.